It was supposed to be a day of joy, a celebration of renewal. I had driven 3 hours through the crisp spring air, my car filled with the scent of fresh flowers and the carefully wrapped gifts in the passenger seat. In one hand, I held a bottle of wine, expensive because I wanted it to mean something, and in the other, a basket of handmade chocolate eggs. My mother's favorite blue shirt clung to me, the one she used to say made my eyes sparkle. But as I stood on the porch, shifting nervously from foot to foot, waiting for her to open the door, none of that mattered anymore. When the door cracked open just wide enough for her face to peek through, her voice hit me like a sledgehammer. "You're not welcome this Easter." 3 words, flat and final, like a judge delivering a verdict. The air froze around me. My lungs tightened. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. Surely, she didn't mean it. But then I saw it. The way she wouldn't meet my gaze, the slight tremble in her hands as she gripped the edge of the door. Behind her, faint laughter drifted from inside the house, muffled but unmistakable. Someone toasted, their glass clinking against another. And then came Olivia's voice, dripping with saccharine sweetness, loud enough for me to hear even from the porch. "Honestly, this year feels so peaceful. No negativity, no drama." Her words stung more than any slap ever could. Peaceful? Without me? I clenched my fists at my sides, trying desperately to keep my composure. Inside, chaos brewed, a storm of hurt, anger, and disbelief. But outside, I forced myself to smile. Not a real smile, but the kind that says, "You have no idea what's coming." I should have known better. Olivia had always been the puppet master pulling strings behind the scenes. She orchestrated everything, from family dinners where I was subtly mocked, to holidays where I was expected to show up, pay up, and shut up. And now, here we were again. Only this time, they weren't just rejecting my presence, they were rejecting me entirely. But I refused to let them see how much it hurt. Instead, I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and said calmly, "Fine. Enjoy your peaceful Easter." Then, before stepping back into my car, I whispered under my breath, "But don't expect my $9,800 anymore." The moment I stepped back into my car after being rejected at the door, something inside me snapped. The weight of years of silent sacrifices, unspoken resentment, and relentless exploitation, finally tipped the scale. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, but it wasn't anger driving me anymore. It was clarity. For too long, I had let them take pieces of me until there was almost nothing left. But today, I decided to take something back. I pulled out my phone and opened the utility management app. One by one, I toggled off the services I'd been paying for: electricity, water, internet. Each tap felt like reclaiming a fragment of myself. Then, before hitting confirm, I paused. This wasn't just about cutting ties. It was about making a statement. So, I typed a group text to my family. "Happy Easter. Hope you enjoy the minimalist living experience I just gifted you." The irony burned sweetly in my chest. With that, I pressed send, and then, with a final tap, shut everything down. From the corner of my eye, I saw Olivia burst through the front door, her phone clutched tightly in her hand like a weapon. "What did you do?" she screamed, her voice shrill enough to pierce glass. Behind her, the porch light flickered and died, plunging the house into shadow. Inside, confusion erupted, a cacophony of shouts, footsteps, and panicked exclamations. Someone must have realized the Wi-Fi was gone because Olivia turned back toward the house, yelling, "We're hosting lunch in 10 minutes. What are we supposed to do without Wi-Fi?" Her words echoed into the cool spring air, but I didn't respond. Instead, I rolled down my window just enough to call out, "Enjoy your peaceful Easter, the way you wanted it. Without me." Her face twisted in fury, but before she could retaliate, I revved the engine and peeled away, leaving behind a cloud of dust and their stunned silence. As I drove, adrenaline coursed through me. I imagined the chaos unfolding inside. Mom frantically trying to explain to guests why the bathroom lights weren't working, Dad muttering under his breath about how irresponsible I was, and Olivia pacing furiously, blaming everyone except herself for this mess. They'd spent so long treating me like an invisible safety net that they never considered what might happen if I finally cut loose. And now here we were. But this wasn't just revenge, it was liberation. Every dollar of the $9,800 I'd poured into that house over the past year had been a tether, chaining me to a family who didn't see me as a person but as a paycheck. Now, those chains were broken, and I felt lighter than I had in years. As the miles stretched between us, I smiled. Not bitterly, but triumphantly. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix their problems. For once, they'd have to figure it out on their own. Looking back, I realize how deeply entrenched my role as the family ATM had become. It wasn't just about paying bills. It was about being the invisible force that kept their lives afloat while they floated further away from me. My dad's unemployment 3 years ago marked the beginning of this spiral. At first, it felt noble, helping with utilities, covering mom's dental procedure, co-signing Olivia's car lease. But what started as kindness quickly morphed into expectation, then entitlement, and finally disdain. I remember one dinner where Olivia leaned back in her chair, smirking as she said, "You're so lucky you don't have kids. All your money is just yours." Her tone dripped with sarcasm, but beneath it lay something sharper, resentment. Resentment not for what I gave, but for how easy it seemed to them. To her, my life, a quiet apartment, weekends spent working overtime, was simple. What she didn't see were the sleepless nights, the skipped meals, the constant mental math calculating who needed what next. But nothing prepared me for the betrayal I discovered months later. A routine check of my bank account revealed unauthorized Apple Pay purchases, a new MacBook, designer clothes, even a wellness retreat at Palm Springs disguised as a business trip for Olivia. The credit card I'd given Mom, just in case, had become a free pass to luxury. When I confronted her, her response hit like a punch to the gut. "You make more than all of us combined," she said softly, as if my income justified her greed. That moment shattered something inside me. It wasn't just the money, it was the audacity, the sheer lack of gratitude. They weren't just taking, they were mocking. Dad would joke during Thanksgiving, "We all play our roles. Mine is being broke, Olivia's is being fabulous, and yours is paying for the turkey." Everyone laughed, including Mom. I forced a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat, pretending I didn't hear the venom laced in their words. Even worse was realizing how calculated it all was. Olivia once texted me, "Did the Wi-Fi glitch or did you forget to pay again?" Not thank you, just suspicion. And yet, I kept giving. Why? Because somewhere deep down, I believed love meant sacrifice. I thought being needed equaled being wanted. But standing on that porch after Easter, hearing Olivia laugh about how useful I was, I understood the truth. Being used isn't the same as being loved. Now, sitting in my car watching the house lights flicker off, I replayed every insult, every condescending remark. Each one felt like a brick added to the wall between us. For years, I let them build it, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, until there was no room left for me. This wasn't just financial exploitation. It was emotional warfare. And now, as I drove away, I vowed never to rebuild those walls again. It was supposed to be a quick drop-off, a bag of groceries, a gesture of goodwill. But as I approached the front door, laughter spilled out from the kitchen, sharp and cutting. I froze, grocery bags in hand, as their voices sliced through the air. "He's so uptight," Olivia sneered. "You think paying a few bills makes him king of the world?" My mom chimed in, her tone dismissive. "Honestly, he's probably just lonely." Lonely? The word hit me like a slap. They weren't just ungrateful, they were mocking me, turning my sacrifices into some kind of pity party. Then Dad's voice joined the chorus. "All that money and no one to spend it on. At least he's good for something." Something, not someone. My chest tightened as their laughter echoed, a cruel symphony of betrayal. I stood there, invisible yet exposed, every dollar I'd given them now feeling like a weapon they'd used against me. For years, I told myself I was helping, that this was what family meant. But hearing them laugh about how useful, I was shattered that illusion. I didn't storm in. I didn't confront them. Instead, I turned and walked away, my footsteps silent on the porch. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of anger, but because of clarity. This wasn't love, it was convenience. I was a resource, a refillable faucet they could turn on whenever they needed. That night, I sat in my car replaying their words, each one carving deeper into my resolve. The next morning, I canceled their Netflix and Disney Plus accounts. It was small, symbolic, a message without words. When Olivia texted, "Did the Wi-Fi glitch or did you forget to pay again?" I didn't respond. But inside, the fire had been lit. Enough was enough. The knock on my door came 2 hours after I left their house, but I wasn't surprised. Olivia's voice pierced through the wood before I even opened it. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Fix this now." When I finally swung the door open, they stormed in like a hurricane. Mom clutching her pearls, Dad pacing furiously, and Olivia, red-faced and seething, already scanning my living room for something to destroy. "You have no right," Olivia shrieked, grabbing a vase off the coffee table. She hurled it toward the wall, missing me by inches. "Who do you think you are? You're not rich. You're just selfish." Her words echoed in the small space, sharp as knives. Mom gasped theatrically, while Dad clenched his fists, muttering under his breath about how I'd ruined everything. I didn't flinch. Instead, I stepped forward, planting myself firmly between them and any further destruction. "If anyone raises their voice or touches anything else in this house, I'm calling the cops," I said, my tone icy calm. The room froze. For the first time, they saw me, not the ATM, not the silent martyr, but me. Then Dad lunged at me, his face contorted with rage. "How dare you disrespect your own family?" he spat, swinging wildly. I sidestepped quickly, putting distance between us. "Try that again, and I'll make sure the police see the security footage." I shot back, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. That stopped him cold. He staggered back, breathing heavily, while Mom sobbed into her hands. But Olivia wasn't done. "You're cutting us off because you can't handle being the loser in this family," she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "Admit it, you're jealous of me." "Jealous?" I laughed bitterly. "No, Olivia. I'm done. Done paying for your spa trips, your designer clothes, your business retreats. Done listening to you laugh behind my back while I bled myself dry for people who never cared." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then I added, "From now on, you find another way to live. Transfer the car lease out of my name, stop using my accounts, and figure out how to pay your own bills. This is over." Dad's face turned purple. "You ungrateful," he started, but I cut him off. "Ungrateful? No, Dad. I'm awake, and you'll never use me again." The fallout from my decision rippled outward like a stone thrown into still water. Olivia, ever the manipulator, took to Instagram with a vengeance. Her posts, cryptic yet pointed, painted me as an ungrateful son who abandoned his family while secretly drowning in debt. "Some people only care about themselves," she wrote, tagging vague mutual friends. The comments exploded. "I always knew he was selfish," one aunt chimed in. Another cousin hinted at financial troubles I didn't have. Suddenly, strangers were texting me, asking if it was true that I'd fled town to escape creditors. I hired a lawyer, not because I had to, but because I refused to let their lies define me. We sent cease and desist letters to anyone spreading falsehoods, and within days, Olivia's posts disappeared. But silence wasn't her style. She escalated, sending anonymous messages claiming I was hiding something big. It felt like a game, but I wasn't playing anymore. Then came Mom's letter, a handwritten masterpiece of guilt and manipulation. "How could you turn your back on us?" she wrote, each word dripping with sorrow. "After everything we've done for you, done for me?" My hands trembled as I read it, anger bubbling beneath the surface. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a drawer labeled evidence, just in case. Her next move was even more theatrical. At the local supermarket, she staged a fainting spell right in front of me. Shoppers rushed over, gasping, as she collapsed dramatically near the produce aisle. "Help, please," someone shouted. When I knelt beside her, she whispered weakly, "Is this what you wanted? To see me suffer?" But I saw through the act. Standing up, I turned to the growing crowd. "She's fine," I announced loudly. "This happens every time she doesn't get her way." Then, without another word, I walked away, leaving her sitting upright, stunned and exposed. For the first time in years, I woke up without the suffocating weight of expectation pressing on my chest. The silence in my apartment wasn't empty. It was alive, buzzing with possibility. I bought a secondhand guitar for $40, its strings slightly rusted but still playable. Every night after work, I sat cross-legged on the floor, fumbling through chords that sounded more like cat fights than music. But it didn't matter. Those off-key notes were mine, not something I owed anyone else. Then came photography class, a whim I'd ignored for years because family emergencies always took priority. On weekends, I hiked trails I'd never explored, camera slung over my shoulder, chasing sunsets and shadows. One evening, as I climbed higher to capture the perfect golden hour shot, I slipped on loose gravel and twisted my ankle. Pain shot through me, sharp and immediate, but instead of frustration, I felt exhilaration. For once, the pain wasn't tied to Olivia's accusations or Mom's guilt trips. It belonged solely to me, proof that I was living for myself. Reconnecting with old friends felt surreal at first. They barely recognized me. Gone was the guy who canceled plans last minute because Dad needed rent money or Olivia wanted concert tickets. Now, I laughed freely, shared stories about learning guitar, and even admitted how terrified I'd been to start over. "You seem lighter," one friend said during coffee. Lighter? Yes, I realized. That's exactly what I was. No longer weighed down by their demands. No longer drowning in resentment. But freedom wasn't just peaceful, it was electric. Late at night, I'd scroll through photos from my hikes, marveling at how vibrant life looked when I stopped dimming myself for others. This was my world now. No utilities to pay for strangers, no lies to untangle. Just me, finally stepping out of the shadow they cast so long ago. It was a crisp autumn evening when I ran into Rachel at the bookstore. She looked different, lighter, freer, her smile no longer tinged with the exhaustion I remembered from college. We exchanged pleasantries, but when she asked about my family, something inside me shifted. "No," I said firmly, surprising even myself with how steady my voice sounded. I cut them off. Rachel didn't gasp or lecture me like others might have. Instead, she smiled knowingly. "Good for you," she said simply. Those 3 words hit harder than any judgment ever could. They weren't pity, they were validation. Over coffee, we talked for hours about boundaries, self-worth, and the courage it takes to walk away from toxicity. "You're allowed to choose yourself," she said, leaning forward. "Even if it feels selfish at first." The real turning point came weeks later, though, when an unknown number flashed on my phone. A stranger's voice greeted me. "Hi. I don't know if you remember me, but I was at that Easter dinner, the one where everything happened." My stomach tightened as memories flooded back. Before I could respond, she continued, "Your story saved me. I finally left my manipulative ex because of what you did. Seeing someone stand up to their family made me realize I could stand up too." Her words lingered long after the call ended. For so long, I thought cutting ties meant losing value, that without them, I'd be nothing. But here was proof that my choice mattered. Not just for me, but for others who felt trapped in their own battles. That night, I sat by the window, staring at the city lights, and let the weight of her gratitude sink in. For the first time, I understood my worth wasn't tied to their approval or dependence. I wasn't the ATM, the martyr, the invisible helper anymore. I was a person, a flawed, growing, thriving person. And that realization? It was priceless. The phone call came late one night, her voice trembling like autumn leaves in the wind. "We can't live without you," Mom whispered, each word heavy with desperation. For a moment, I let the silence stretch between us, remembering all the times those same words had chained me to their chaos. But this time was different. This time, I didn't feel guilt pricking at my chest or the familiar urge to rush back and fix everything. Instead, I felt calm. "Mom," I began, my voice steady despite the storm of memories swirling inside me. "I'm not the child who needed your approval anymore. I'm a man who knows how to love himself." The line went quiet, save for her shaky breaths. It was as if she'd never considered that possibility, that I could exist outside their orbit, whole and unbroken. Saying no hadn't been easy. At first, it felt like betrayal, like severing something sacred. But what they called cruel, I now saw as survival. Boundaries weren't walls, they were lifelines. Walking away from them wasn't heartless, it was healing. Every dollar I spent on myself instead of their emergencies felt like reclaiming pieces of my soul. Every quiet evening alone felt like freedom blooming. "I'm sorry," she murmured finally, her voice breaking. "You're still our son." Her words trailed off, but I didn't fill the silence. She wasn't apologizing for their actions. She was apologizing because she realized I wouldn't come running anymore. "You taught me how to survive," I said softly, "but I learned how to thrive without you." Before hanging up, I added, If anyone out there feels trapped by people who only take and never give, hear this. You deserve better. Saying no isn't cruelty, it's courage. Protect yourself, choose your happiness, and don't look back. As I set the phone down, I exhaled deeply. No guilt, no regret, just clarity. They might twist my name into a curse at their dinner table, but their stories couldn't touch me anymore. My life was mine, and for the first time, it felt enough.